Hey folks, Eshan Lacoste here from All Wyse Transformation, where we talk about mental health, spiritual practice, and self-care. As always, this platform is only used for information gathering, and so I would ask folks if you are having severe mental or emotional struggles, please contact a professional. With that said, hey Juno.
Hi, bonjour. How goes it?
It goes. Oh my gosh, it's been raining over here like crazy. Crazy.
One of my friends is in upstate New York right now, and they said it's quite insane up there
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
like the pouring of it. But they sent me a video, and the sound was so lovely. Rain is like my favorite sound to sleep to.
Yeah. So, sometimes when I find myself really in my head, I like to listen to either like the brown noise or the noise of the rain in the jungle. I like sound.
I also like the sound of rain on a tin roof or like rain
Mmm.
on a car roof or whatever. Like the it's just this not only the sound of the rain, but like I think when it hits a tin roof, it sounds like kind of sparkly, and when it hits like a car windshield, it sounds kind of like very round.
I do feel like it's a good way of being in a meditative state,
Hmm.
which I appreciate. So, do you want to share some of the projects that you're working on? What's happening on your project, the House of H?
Yeah, there's like a whole bunch of things happening for the House of H actually. And thank you for asking that unprompted. Right now, the House of H is moving its witch school training from Zoom and like more of a private setting to the school platform spelled SKOOL. So if you were to find witch school on the school platform, it would be school.com/ which school, but school in which school also spelled SKOOL. That's happening right now. We are also gearing up for a retreat in August, which you will be attending, which I'm so excited for.
I'm so excited!
Yes! The Lionsgate retreat. It's from August 7th to the 10th. It's going to be a magical time with sacred ceremony and cacao and yoga and non dualistic experiences. Wonderful. And then we have the upcoming October retreat, which is super exciting. So there's like a lot of moving parts happening right now. And we are maybe about to get our first major charitable donation, which I'm excited for.
Ooh.
Yeah. I was at I was at my family's restaurant earlier today, and there's this older queer man that comes in, and he like sits at the bar and eats and like whatever, always by himself. And we were talking about politics because, of course, and I explained to him how me and my friends all acknowledged this problem of queer aging, or not problem, but this kind of like interesting place that we are in history where we have our first generation of out queer elders, which did not exist before. So
Yeah,
there's not really a
yeah.
plan for how to age as a queer person, as like the same way there is as a straight person. And he was like, "You're doing really great work." And I was like, "Thank you." He was like, "So where's this place going to be?" And I was like, "Well, right now we're looking at the Berkshires for a property." I was like, "I found one that I like up there." Um, and he was like, "Can I have your card again?" And I said, "Sure." So we'll see where that goes.
Nice. Ugh, connections. Just
Yeah.
just by a guy sitting by the bar. Who knew, huh? Right?
Yeah. He was 73 and he was like, after a certain age, you just become invisible. And I was like, that's insane and ridiculous and unacceptable. That's actually how the conversation started. And then it led to politics and then it led to the House of H.
Nice, nice. So much good stuff happening for the House of H, huh?
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. And I'm feeling like I've been doing this for 2 years now, as you know. So, like, it's the fact that I'm seeing the beginnings of it gaining legs and like starting to operate as a nonprofit is
Mhm.
really both rewarding and exciting and just like it's very alive feeling for me. And that's really nice because I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not having children. At least I don't think I'm having children. The baby never seems to take. But what can I say? Um, I don't think I'm having children, so the House of H is the closest thing I have to a child, and it's my personal legacy. So
It really is. Cause let me tell you, folks, cause Gina, we send memes on Instagram back and forth, and I happened to send him a meme about something that that was about a gardener who is like using her backyard and soil and ecosystem in a very friendly way if she needed to get rid of a body. And let me tell you, Juno's response was just like, huh, yeah, I can see myself doing that.
Well, actually, before people think I'm some insane person, I said, yeah, I actually think I knew that because when I thought about how I wanted my body to be treated after I passed away, and I would like to be buried in a somewhat shallow grave, like three feet deep, inoculated with like psilocybin magic mushrooms in like just a glade around trees, because I think that just feels right for me, and I want it
I love
to
it.
be on one of the properties that I end up opening.
I love it. I love it. And I could so see like it being like a sacred space when as soon as those mushrooms start growing.
That's the goal. That is the goal. Accidentally, somebody's like, "What are these?" And they pluck them and they eat one. Then all of a sudden, I'm like, "Woo!" From the afterworld. I'm like, "Get ready for magic, bitches."
Oh my gosh, it brings a whole new level to magic, huh? Oh man. So we have a topic today, folks. But
Yeah.
before we get into our topics, we're gonna ask questions.
Yeah.
You ready for a question?
Mm-hmm.
Imagine you're explaining your job to a 5-year-old. How would you describe it?
I help people who are different find family.
Mmm. I like that. Yeah.
What about you?
Huh. Huh. I talk to people who just need somebody to listen to.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Wait, you mean you talk to people who just need somebody to talk to?
Yes. Or listen to? Like they need someone to listen. Oh, I need to listen.
Yeah, you need to do the listening. So you talk to people who need someone to listen.
Yes. Yes. That just happened, folks.
I
Yeah.
love that.
My job is talking for a living, believe it or not.
I love that.
What do you got for me?
So my question is, if judgment did not exist, what ridiculous or like fabulous thing would you do every day without hesitation?
I think I would probably walk around with more like witchy, flowy outfits. I would have like paint my nails more often. Occasionally, maybe go out naked.
Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
my answer. I would be naked all the time. Like if it wasn't illegal, I would fully always be naked everywhere. I love being naked. I mean, I live pretty out loud. Let's be real, Eshan.
That is true.
Yeah, with all of, like the nonprofit and social media stuff that I do and whatever. I've also surrendered to the fact that at some point, if when the House of H becomes like more known, I'm just ready for my nudes to surface. So in advance, you're welcome. Whoever sees them.
You've heard it here, folks.
Yeah,
Juno do have nudes, and they're out there.
they are out there.
This is a generalization, but I don't know like any queer guy who doesn't have his nudes out there. But there's probably a small handful of folks who have never done that. But like occasionally, if I'm feeling a guy, I'm like, okay, I'll let you take a sneak peek. But I know there's not much coming out of that.
I mean, there was a time in my life. I'm not going to say that this is also that time, but I think there's a time in my life where I wouldn't meet or go on a date with somebody if I didn't see them naked in advance.
Mm. Okay.
And I was happy to reciprocate as well. It's not like I was, but I just was like, I don't know how graphic we want to be on YouTube.
Not too graphic.
Are you monetized yet?
Not yet. Not
Okay, but then
yet.
we can't get demonetized, so who cares?
Yeah. Okay, you ready for our today's topic?
Yes.
Non-judgmental awareness. Oh my gosh.
Oh my god, it's like I knew that when I asked the question.
So, non-judgmentalness stands towards feelings, thoughts, experiences. Being a non-judgmental mean observing what is happening without labeling it as good or bad, right or wrong. It's about acknowledging reality as is, which can lead to a greater peace and self-compassion. That's my favorite part, self-compassion. Anyway, what are your thoughts, huh?
I think non-judgment is a great, or being non-judgmental is a great like way to move through life. And I think that I also think that like it's important that we make a distinction probably somewhat early on, the difference between judgment and discernment,
Yes.
because I think that like discernment keeps us safe. And discernment makes us aware of our surroundings and if the people we are around feel like okay to be around. But then I think judgment is when you assign like this is correct and this is incorrect. Or like
Right.
it's more of like comes from a place of values instead of objective observation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it also comes from a place of, insecurity. It comes from a place of doubt, in the sense of when you are judging,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
compared to when you're taking the non-judgmental stance, which is more objective, right? So it's like looking at a ball, or for example, like looking at a tree, and then like, oh, that's a beautiful maple tree. When it's like, oh, that's a tree, and it has leaves, and so it's really describing something and not emotionally investing into it.
Okay. Do you think that all judgments involve emotion?
I think anything that we do as human beings involves some sort of emotion, right? I know part of this conversation is about taking sort of a really objective and non-judgmental stance, but I think it's the reality is that we're all make a judgment or non-judgment in a very sort of emotional way. What drives us or what motivates us comes from our emotions, and I don't necessarily know if we could tease those.
I think that there's there's truth to that, but I do think that there are areas of our life where we can be like clinical almost with
Yeah,
non-judgment. But I
yeah,
think that that's almost a learned skill set. Like
yeah.
you're either in some form of position where you've learned to be clinical or you're like a serial killer. Those are the two.
No serial killers need apply.
No, 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 no. Although I don't think they'd ask. So
Yeah, I do agree with you. I feel like going back to what you said, that having discernment is important, being able to sort of not put yourself in a risky situation, and being clear, like, oh, this person I'm interacting with is probably not a nice person, right? And so I think that's when discernment is really and called for. But I think for me, when I'm thinking about like using this particular skill of non-judgment, is for folks who are really struggling emotionally, high anxiety, depression. Not saying that it's a easy fix or a quick making things turn around, but it's a practice, it's a mindset. It's sort of like a Buddhist practice, right?
yeah,
Sort of this idea that the attachment to things is the cause of the suffering, right? Like the fact that he doesn't love me, like the fact that I'm suffering over the fact that he doesn't love me. I think that's where the work needs to happen when folks just find themselves ruminating, obsessing, sort of in this sort of dark, sad place, and being able to sort of step away from it.
yeah. I think that being able to switch into some type of objective observer, and I know we talk a lot about the observer on previous episodes and stuff like that, so I'm going to try to be like light on it. But I think that if you can step out of the ego of the situation and the like high voltage emotion of a situation, whether that be positive, negative, or just like indifferent, it it kind of is better for your mental health as like, or like the person's mental health, the entity's mental health. But I also think that like judgment in general, when you're not doing it from a discerning place, which is more objective, I think frequently it's actually not even your voice most of the time. I think
Mm.
it's usually someone else's narrative.
Hmm. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And I've I've used this sort of mental exercise with some of my participants in the sense of if you're taking that step away from your emotions, it's naming it, naming your depression, George, or naming your self doubt, Lisa, or something like that, and like, oh, Lisa, I hear you're sort of like being, over the top right now. And so sort of separating yourself a little bit from the charge of the emotion.
Absolutely. And I told one of my friends that she has like major anxiety and depression, and I was like, just name it and like separate yourself from it. That way you could be like, stop being such like an annoying person right now, or stop being like, you can speak to it as it is, as if it is not you, because in a way, even though you're generating it, it's the feelings are never you. The feelings are
Right.
something that are produced as a result of you, but they're not who you are.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that practice helps you remember that. And I know sometimes some of my participants like, oh, are you promoting like split personality? I'm like, well, no, that's not what I'm promoting, and that would be really difficult because that requires a level of disassociation, a level of trauma, to get to that. It's really a kindness, a compassion practice of like, I hear that you're. This is internally speaking to myself, right? Because
Yeah.
as an individual who struggles with depression and anxiety, right? It's like, I hear you're depressed right now, um, but you've always been depressed. The only difference is that now you could sort of see it and name it. And so, how do I develop a relationship that's like living with a roommate? Um,
Yeah. That's
you're you're not doing the dishes today, depression. You're not doing the laundry today, depression, right? So it's
You're
sort of
eating ice cream straight from the container, depression. That's your fourth chocolate bar, depression.
it's true. It's true.
Yeah.
Oh, because it's overwhelming to have all of these, to feel all of these feelings, and it's a small tool to pull out of the toolbox.
I also think that jumping instantly to like, are you asking people to dissociate is kind of an oversimplification of the process, right? Like, we as human beings are more nuanced than that. And I think that's probably just someone who's attempting to be inflammatory. Outside of judgment, of course. But I'm just assessing. I am assessing. Yeah. Probably coming from a place of fear, XYZ, all that stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Well, because it goes back to what you said, right? Like this idea of realizing that you are not your emotions, and then you sort of ask yourself, then what is my emotions, or where do they come from, and why do I feel them in the first place if they're not mine? Right? Like, what? I don't want them, so why are they hanging around? They need to go.
Yeah, I mean that's honestly like, think about it, when you made a great comparison when you described like a roommate, right? Because
Yeah,
sometimes roommates are great and sometimes they're really not. And so
yeah,
like either way, sometimes you're stuck with them for a period of time, so you're going to need to learn to
yeah,
deal with it.
yeah.
I do that through ritual. Like that's
Mm,
how I do it. I like,
yeah,
and I mean when I say ritual, like yes, sometimes magic, but not always. Like to me ritual can be like making sure that I do yoga at least once a day, at preferably at the same time.
yeah,
And then like I choose then to do those things, like the things that are my anchors for the day. I choose to do them with intention because it brings me back to me. It brings me back to center.
Yeah. Well, and I think I have also talked about this before in previous episodes. The importance of having a practice. There's something very very grounding about having something that you do on a regular basis, and I know the days that when I don't either meditate or do yoga. And again, I don't do this on a consistent basis, but I do know that I do give my offerings out to my ancestors, and I try to make that a daily thing. And I do feel off just a little bit when that doesn't necessarily happen that morning for whatever reason. And so having a practice is important because it's the foundation of the other tools that you could pull from your toolbox.
And I also think that having a practice is important because I'm trying to think of a way to say it without sounding super like woo woo and like in the ether, but I can't. So I also think if we're spirits having a physical experience, right? If you believe in the soul and you believe in the spirit and you believe that like that is what we truly are, and this is like a meat suit or a vessel that we are experiencing this environment through, which is my personal belief system, it's my own BS. I think that then creating a ritual or a practice daily, whether that be spiritual or just a consistent thing that you know you're going to do each day, it causes your body to trust you. It allows your body to say, okay, I know that I'm going to eat every day at 2 p.m., for example, or I know that I'm going to XYZ. I'm going to do yoga every day at 10 a.m. I'm going to do breath work at 10 a.m., whatever. I think that that type of thing is really important because it, for me, it helps my body trust me more. And as a person who is very like airy and all over the place, as I'm sure you can attest, it takes a lot for me to be embodied. It takes a lot for me to be grounded. And so I think when I invested in a ritual practice for myself, I became a lot more productive and a lot more grounded.
Yeah, and I think it helps the practice part, right? I think for me, I know that it helps to feel less of in the world, if that makes any sense. Like I'm not as invested in the office drama, right? I'm not I'm
Yes.
not I'm not as invested in as the argument happening downstairs, right? I'm not as invested in like my credit card bills piling up, right? Like there seems to be an emotional load that relieves me of that stress. I saw that face
You're saying that a load relieves you of stress, is what I'm hearing?
on my face.
You're like, we're not going to be able to put this up. It'll be fine.
Practicing non-judgmental awareness. So there's mindfulness breathing, which Juno, if you want mindful breathing, connect with Juno, follow Juno, go to House of H. Like he'll give you some really 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 good techniques and exercises to do with that. And we always come back to the breath, and I think in most of all of our talks,
You know what?
somehow.
It's presence. That's why it's the best way to become present in the moment. And not only that, like truly, if you're going to talk about the chemical component of like breath work and like being present in the breath, by over oxygenating your body to an extent, or like it alkalizes the body, and by it gets you like out of fight or flight and into like a rest and digest. So like chemically it actually helps the body, especially if you're doing something like breathing in for 4 and out for 6 or out for 8. That action subconsciously tells your body, I can exhale longer, so I am safe right now. Versus, and you can like actually reference that with like science. It's not so much like me being like,
Yeah.
but like shorter breaths are like fight and flight. It's like run, like do the thing. Like it's a survival instinct skill. So I think a lot of people, especially in the world today, are running around in fight or flight, even
Yeah.
when they're not there. Like even,
Yeah.
and I think that we're so conditioned to be like hyper productive and like doing the thing that we sometimes forget to take a moment and go like, oh, this isn't the default mechanism. This is just a
Right.
conditioning.
Yeah. 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 I know the practice of the breath is a really good way of just really being in the moment, like just really laser focusing. And again, like, you're gonna have thoughts that go through your mind, and you're gonna be thinking about your shopping list of what you need, errands and chores that day. But it really sort of like puts you in that moment.
I also think that with meditation or breath work, which is really like, I think that's also an interesting distinction to make. When people hear meditation, they think like sitting there, like, which is valid. But breath work is more of like an active form of meditation. So for people that organically have racing thoughts or like they can't really sit still at first, breathwork is a great vehicle for that because you're actively doing something, especially in a practice like a dynamic breathwork practice, which is the ones that we do like with the full and new moon sometimes. So yeah, I think it's a great vehicle for people to get people in their bodies.
Yeah, yeah. Another tool you could use is observational. This says observational walking, but I think observational anything is a really good tool to use. But observational walking, right, in the sense of, if you live in a downtown area, then just walk down your block and observe what there is, if it's safe enough to do that. If you're not happen to be in a war zone, I'm not saying that people would be listening to us if they were in a war zone, because they would have more priorities, better
Trusting things,
priorities.
yeah. People in
But
Palestine probably not tuning into All Wyse Transformations.
probably not.
I haven't checked the statistics though, so
I gotta check those numbers, but I probably not. Observational, right? Like you could observational cooking, right? Just being mindful of just what you're doing, from cutting to seasoning to measuring, and sometimes just being paying attention to your body posture as you're standing over there over your oven or your counter. Just paying attention of how your posture is, or like, yeah, just being observant of the moment, or yeah, being mindful. I think that's the kitschy word, being mindful, but it's really observing. How can I observe the moment?
I think that's why I like yoga, by the way. Because when you're in a pose, like we'll use downward facing dog because that's like everyone knows what that is, pretty much. Most people, I would imagine. But being in that position, for example, like you have to focus on like where are my heels right now? Where are my hands right now? How is my shoulder feeling? Is this like how like it just
Yeah,
that's why I like yoga because it puts you in touch with your body. You have to ask yourself questions and say like, why am I feeling this? Is this a strength? Is this a weakness? Am I injured?
yeah, yeah. No, you're completely right. You're completely right. Yeah,
I
that
think that
feels good though.
that also like yoga, and I agree, it does feel good. Like the sometimes the little bit of strain, especially like calves
Hmm.
and like hamstrings. But like people that have really large beauty regimens, you know what I mean? Like those people that have like 20-step processes and stuff. That's just it's the same thing. It's mindfulness. It's like getting in touch with you in a different way.
Yeah, I would imagine that's how you felt when you were doing drag, right? Like you really had to be observant of how you're putting your makeup, and like how you're putting the outfit, and just like really being in the moment and being mindful of each step.
Yeah. I also think that drag for me was an outlet because at the time I was in social work and that was like I mean I'm still in social work because I opened a nonprofit, but I was in social work in a different capacity and I was working with very vulnerable populations and a lot of the materials I dealt with were very like dark and heavy and I needed to infuse like laughter and light back into my life in some capacity, and I needed to feed my creativity. So drag was a great outlet for that, especially since when I was much younger, I enjoyed the nightclub scene in New York, and I really like that was like where my personality kind of developed and bloomed. And so drag was a really lovely like next step in that area because I got to kind of create a character and I had always been into theater and so like I think that I think everyone should do drag at least once in their life. I think everyone should. It's very
I,
freeing, and it gives you a new perspective on yourself.
Yeah, yeah. No, I don't. Yeah, I feel like the level of practice I have, I could put a little bit more energy into facilitating that. I think the only level of artistry compared to what you described, well, nothing compared to what you described, but is drawing. I really enjoy drawing, where it really sort of puts me in the moment, like just paying attention to the pressure that I'm putting on the paper with whatever utensil, if it's chalk or the paintbrush. Yeah, that's a nice practice that I haven't like picked back up again.
I think drawing is, I don't want to say more artistry than drag, but I think it's the same level
Yeah,
because, like, it's just a different way of participating with your medium, right? Like, you're using the paper as your canvas, you're using the canvas
yeah,
as your canvas, and I just happen to use my body as the canvas. And I think that,
yeah,
like, it's just a different way of relating to it. I think
yeah,
it's because I look at this human experience as like I'm very much part of it, right? I'm very present. I acknowledge my humanity. I appreciate my humanity, but I definitely don't fully feel like the meat suit. You know what I mean?
mhm,
And so because I don't feel like that, I'm like, oh, we can turn this whole world into one big art project. Like we can try to bring as much color and joy and like fun as possible.
yeah. That's why I'm friends with you. I need all the fun that I could get in my life. So one of the things is, if non-judgmental arises, simply acknowledge that you're having a judgmental thought, and then just observe it. And you don't have to do anything with it. You don't have to manipulate it, control it. Just observe that you're having a judgmental thought, and that could be anything from seeing a clown, because most people don't like clowns. Judgmental, right? Right.
Yeah.
Some people run into other people being rude to them online, right? Like you're gonna like, oh, that you're not necessarily gonna say like they're probably having a bad day, but you're gonna be like, oh, that big, or that just being aware of like how can you like acknowledging just the things that you see.
Do you have a
So
name
one
for
way,
your judgmental personality?
Shishi or Shasha.
Ooh, I love both of those.
There was one time that I it wasn't necessarily a drag, but I dressed up, and it was this event, and I took on that character where I was really sort of mean, and it was like, where did that shishi shasha meanness come from?
It's funny because I associate judgment with being mean too. Like it's not a kind emotion. uh, my judgmental girl's name inside me is Regina. Yeah. Like,
I can see you being like a. You ever seen that movie Mean? Oh well, probably not. Mean Girl movie.
of course I've seen Mean Girls. It's iconic. And actually, that's why I named her Regina. Because during a period of my life, I was not always super nice. I was not always super enlightened and lovely. I was a real not nice person for a period in my 20s. And that was like my friends would call each other like Regina, Gretchen, and Karen. Like that was our little like we were the mean girls. Actually, one of the mean girls is in which school with you?
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Gretchen, technically, if we're gonna get down to
Right.
it. But
Aggression. Okay, okay. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay. Nice. Aww.
yeah.
Um, I don't know if we would be friends if we were in our mean personas, in our judgment personas. I don't think we would be friends.
Really? Why?
I I don't know. I think we'd be like throwing shade like every chance we got.
Maybe. I always when I was in that vibe when I was that girl, I always kind of I had an energy of like if you don't have anything nice to say, come sit next to me. Like it was very inclusive even as a mean girl. I would like partner up with someone or like a couple people at an event, and I'd be like, this bitch. Ugh. Can I give you an example of something Regina did once, which was really, I mean, it led to me having one very good friend for like years.
What was it?
It was freshman year of college. I was in a psychology of sexuality class, and I was sitting either diagonally from this boy or to the left of this boy. And I knew he was gay, even though he was not out. And he did come out. We became friends, blah, blah, blah. I didn't out him or anything. But he was wearing black socks with white shoes, and the socks came up above his ankle, and they were lower shoes. And I tapped him, and I was like, "Hi, what's your name?" And he told me his name, and I was like, "Hi, nice to meet you." And I was like, "Just so you know, we don't do that. So you need to not do that ever again, ever." And we became friends.
That's so mean. I would go home crying to my mom.
I told you I wasn't always nice. It's a journey, this human experience.
Oh my goodness. I'm glad I don't know that version of you.
I'm glad I did it in this order too, where I was like mean early on and then I got nice. Much better.
Another way to practice non-judgmentalness is when you are able to maintain a non-judgmental stance. What are the challenges? So to just figure out like what's difficult about being in this observant mindset, right? Because there's the observer, and then there's the observer who's sort of like the objective, right? And then there's the subjective, which is the person who's being observed, I guess, right?
Yeah.
And so, being aware, like, what's the challenge? How is this being? How is you looking at a flower and just not describing it compared to experiencing it, right? Like, I don't know if that makes any sense. But the work is to identify what's the challenging part for you, right?
Yeah, and I also think I think when you use nature as an example, it's kind of challenging
That's
because
true.
you can't really, I mean, you can absolutely interact and communicate with nature, but you're not getting feedback in the same way you do from a person. So, like,
Right.
I think that when you say, like, to look at a flower and be like, it's a red tulip, it has 3 stamens, its stem is green, although green could technically be a judgment. Like, yeah, right? Because somebody might look and say, no, that's viridian or cyan. Like, have you ever thought about who named white? Like, or like shades in general? There's like white, eggshell, smoker's teeth. It's like, there's any number.
Yeah, I don't. Do you know who like named give colored names? Do you know who does that?
I imagine it's some judgmental gay. Benjamin Moore, more like Benjamin Less. Bow. Shablam.
That's a good example of practicing judgment.
In a playful way, with not meant to harm. I'm sure Benjamin Moore's got more than enough money. He can handle it.
He definitely can handle it, man. Anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
Um, don't be judgmental. Be kind to someone today. And if you are a marginalized or person in a position of challenge, be in community and use your voice.
Nice. Hey, folks, we'll see you next time.